something, and then people would just be like, what? They launched an airdrop? Okay, hello and welcome to Game of Thrones, a weekly podcast on the cosmos from independent validators with a perennially dodgy start. We've just been talking about healthcare, which is obviously not very related to the current drama in Cosmos, but it is very interesting to have an international perspective on such things. This episode we've called it Extra Credit, and it's about what is going to happen next, probably in the ongoing resolution of the implications of Prop 16, which obviously we're all quite close to. And Meow from Juno Core is hopefully going to join us in a little bit as well. So yeah, hopefully this is going to be a little bit less dry than wading through some of the text proposals and the implications thereof that we've have had to do during the last week. Because we put this together at relatively short notice. It's just Schultzy and Jabbey joining me until Meow shows up, which I think is going to happen in a bit. But obviously there's few people as qualified, particularly than Joe, to speak about this. So we were wondering earlier, Joe, do you still have this? So Joe put together a great flow chart of where we're up to. Do you still have that, Joe? Can you screen share it?
Yeah, I do. I just sent that to you, but I can also.
I think if you say to screen share, I can give you permission.
All right. Let me put that on a proper screen.
Nerds, I know we're so bad, aren't we? Allow me to put it on my second monitor.
Second. That's all.
There's more than two.
And you have to worry about the rotated monitor for coding.
That's right.
I mean, this is going to come off fantastically on the Spotify version of this podcast.
All right. Well,
maybe Usurper could trim this.
Do you have to welcome my screen into the?
There we go.
There it is. Wow, we're like high tech now. So Prop 4 came along and says, they gave the stake drop. And then Wolf says, no, they didn't. They're a fund. It's cool. So we rejected it. And then they started selling a bunch of Juno. And then Prop 16 comes along. There's some investigation. There's some articles. Core 1 says, please vote no, but it still passed anyway. So then we can kind of zoom out and see like how everything's expanded from that point. Validators have had concerns. CCN wants to negotiate. There was a PR that was briefly ready, then it was closed, and there's another PR, and then there's been multiple PRs. Over here on the Commonwealth proposals, I really like that people have gotten more active in the Commonwealth and making proposals about different remediations, different ways to handle the situation at hand. And sort of on the side here, also tracking kind of the general consensus from the community about, hey, all right, it's passed, let's do it. And then why isn't governance doing anything? And why isn't Core 1 doing anything? And then why isn't it over? And so where we've basically sunk to from all these different paths are, CCN has a proposal that they've prepared. There's the Unity proposal that Core 1 has produced. And then there's the one that I effectively authored, gathering up information and what would be the logical conclusion from that information. So that's the three proposals that we currently have on deck right now.
Yeah. So now we've kind of gone through Jabbey's quite excellent flowchart. I guess for the rest of this, we'll refer to them as the CCM prop, Unity prop, and the burn prop.
Simple enough.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm going to attempt a very short summary of each of those. And Schultzy, if you think I'm screwing this up, then please jump in. So the CCM prop is let's split what we have 50-50 between the community and our own investors. The burn prop is we undelegate and then burn the funds held by CCN. And the unity prop is we undelegate and move the funds to a smart contract, which has hooks that CCN can use and hooks that the community can use. That is my summary of the three proposals. Is that reasonable?
I think that's a good top-level summary of it. I think that one thing that would be best to discuss a little bit more is like, what is the end game of the Unity proposal, right? Do you envision it as being like right now we have it labeled as like an escrow account, right? Where we'll have some level of control. But the reality is that'll probably just end up being a pseudo burn, right? It's going to be locked up for an indeterminate amount of time because there's probably going to be no conclusion as to who gets what, right? So what's your vision of what the Unity will eventually become?
Well, so there's a couple. So we'll talk a little bit about each of the props in a minute, but I think it's also worth saying that Unity prop was obviously put forward when everything was a lot more uncertain and a lot more shouty, maybe, than it has got now. I think the conversation has sobered a little bit, and I think we're in a more constructive place than we were a week ago or 10 days ago. But the original Unity prop, like you say, I think certainly the way CCN view it is sort of burning by another means because it's locking the funds up. There is a way of putting a timer on this, right? Which is to say, instead of the default position being nothing moves, you could actually amend that contract design to be that it still has the governance hooks for the community. It still has the withdrawal hook for CCN, but you could also do a vesting schedule on it so that the default position is that it drains over time, right? The other thing that you could amend to that, which is if you say that it's going to drain over time in favor of an account nominated by CCN, i.e. their admin, you could equally remove what we call the ripcord, which is their ability to withdraw with a 28-day delay. Because if you're getting the funds vested over a longer period, then is there ever a scenario where it benefits the community to use the ripcord? No. So the default position is come up with a compromise to agree to withdraw the funds, or the funds will drain over a 10-year vest, let's say. So that there has been some discussion around contract implementation about whether to go back to the community and ask about that, should there be the ripcord in the current design, or should there be a vest? But the problem is, going back to the community at this stage on Commonwealth is likely to just cause kind of anxiety, or it's quite hard to communicate, even to technical people, smart contract design. I mean, talking about code is hard, right? I mean, we're all on this call, we all kind of understand it. And even then, part of this call is that we're kind of explaining this to each other as well as we go. So I understand that it is like a difficult thing to kind of talk about, especially in text form on these Commonwealth proposals. So I guess we've started talking about the Unity prop. There's no particular order with how we were going to go through the three things that are going to happen. But so before we go on, I will say that there is a logical sequencing of events that is now going to happen. People have been asking what's going to happen. The answer is probably tomorrow. We are going to table Lupercalia Phase 1, which is a security upgrade that will have. Oh, this is great. We should have Joe with the charts up all the time. This is amazing. So Lupercalia Phase 1 is a security upgrade, and crucially, it has an upgrade in it that allows the governance module to take actions on a smart contract. And this is very new behavior. This is new and exciting behavior. So the reason this is important is because the Unity prop requires the governance module to be able to take actions on a smart contract. And this is why I think smart contract developers like me are very excited by this, you know, not just because I think it's a good solution, but because it is genuinely very novel to try and solve this deadlock in a zero trust environment with a smart contract, with a smart contract that's not only a smart, you know, just solving it with a smart contract full stop would be pretty historic, but solving it with a smart contract that's actually directly controlled by the governance module is completely, I mean, the concept is completely impossible in a proof of work chain, right?
So can we take a moment to talk about this a little longer? So currently governance can basically do like a community spend proposal. It can do a text proposal, a software upgrade proposal, and then now there's going to be like execute smart contract type proposal, or what will that look like in reality? And will that have any sort of I suppose anybody can create a proposal right now. Are there any controls around that smart contract execution now? Like, can anyone just put up a proposal that says we should do this to a smart contract, or how would that look?
Right. So what you do is you implement. Cosmos smart contracts have several entry points. You can think of them as like a write entry point and a read entry point if you're kind of used to traditional database models. And then there are a couple of extra ones. One of them is like a hook for if you get a message from another smart contract, how do you handle that? And there is an additional one, which is that this has come in with the most recent upgrade, which is I have gotten a message from the governance module. What should I do with it? So you need to handle specifically the message case, and it needs to be formatted, obviously, a certain way, serialized in a certain way to take an instruction. So the Unity prop contract exists. It has been written. And at the moment, it is implemented purely to the letter and word of the Unity prop as it is up on Commonwealth. So it has. I can actually throw up. I've got a couple of pictures I can throw up to show what it does. So the first thing, and you can see a little bit of the side of us over here. Where is it? Hello. There's my hand. So there is a address that can do actions. In this case, we would envisage it to be CCN, and they can take a withdrawal action. This is available at any time. They can request a withdrawal. It starts a smart contract, a timer effectively in the smart contract. And then after that time has elapsed, the withdrawal can actually be executed, right? And that's the 28-day delay. It's actually configurable, but in the implementation notes on Commonwealth, it was said that it would be 28 days. So that's what we would configure it to, right? And then when that timer ends, you can actually withdraw the funds. Now we've been referring to this as the ripcord, right? So you request a withdrawal, the parachute starts deploying, and at some point you actually start slowing down. I guess that's the funds arriving in one go. That's actually a really bad analogy, but whatever. Anyway, for some reason we call it the ripcord, but what it is a delayed release of funds. So that behaves very much like a normal smart contract. It's just the execute handler, right? But the other half of the governance contract is the bit that the other half of this contract is the governance actions, which is the bit I think that you were asking about just then, Schulze, which is that a governance prop can send a message, and it can be one of 3 message types that are implemented. So the contract basically looks at what the message type is. I mean, obviously the message type could also be invalid, which would be bad. But there are 3 actions available to the community effectively, right? There's burn all the funds held by the contract. There's send an amount of native funds to an address, and there's send all funds held by the contract to an address. So again, pretty straightforward. So governance could decide to do any one of those 3 things on the right by sending the right message to the smart contract.
So you said for a moment that there's an assumption that the contract or the message would be formatted correctly. What's the default behavior if the message isn't formatted correctly? What if there's all this buildup around a prop saying we're going to do this and it's not formatted correctly, or someone sends it in and does something wrong? What will happen?
You get a cosmwasm panic, and it says incorrect message format. I think invalid WASM message, and it returns an error from the SDK level, from the WASM module. So it would be pretty important to do a dry run of that on a testnet with this, which obviously, so Uni 1 currently has this behavior available to it on testnet. So the reality is whoever was going to implement such a proposal from the community would want to go on Uni and propose that upgrade, right, to test that it works. Otherwise, they would risk burning. Well, actually, I guess they wouldn't burn any Juno, but they would just look a bit silly if they did it on mainnet and it didn't work as anticipated.
Okay, so yeah. To clarify, there would be an error, but it wouldn't cause a chain halt. It wouldn't cause crazy adverse behavior. It would just say throw up a new prop, essentially. Because
no, it would be exactly the same as on the name service. If you don't fund a WASM message correctly when you try and buy a name, it throws a WASM error. It would be exactly the same severity as that. It's completely sort of firewalled within the contract itself. Just because the contract has been called by governance doesn't mean there's like some much more risky behavior that's being used. So yeah, so that's the Unity prop smart contract, and that's how it would work. And I think we've kind of gone over why it's cool as well, which is that we're a smart contract chain, and to be able to solve a problem like this using a smart contract is kind of inherently cool. Maybe coolness is perhaps not the best way to be judging the relative merit of quite high stakes things, but it is cool, and it would be pretty historic to, on a proof of stake chain, solve a governance problem using a smart contract controlled by the community. I mean, I think that would be kind of pretty incredible. But that, what I think about the technical coolness of it obviously shouldn't really influence anybody on whether they think it's a good idea or not, because it does obviously boil down to whether or not this is the right thing to do in terms of governance and in terms of actually mediating the situation effectively, which is, does this contract or does the Unity prop itself actually set up a reasonable ground for negotiation, right? And all of that kind of stuff that we've been talking about before.
So what does it look like if another option is proposed and the smart contract needs modified? Will that just go through a standard smart contract upgrade, change, or will it just be a simple update to the contract for the new addition, for the new proposal that people are bringing forward?
So you mean if, let's say somebody said, oh, I would like to perform some other behavior that's not currently supported by the contract?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so right now accepts a certain amount of types of messages, a fourth message that says immediate burn half, distribute half, as an off-the-cuff example.
Yeah, so, well, this is the difficulty. So as suggested by Unity, my understanding of it is that the contract should be instantiated without any admin. So you instantiate without an admin, it means nobody can ever rug the contract itself. So if a regulator came along and was like, stop this immediately, can't do it, there's no admin. It basically, taking away the admin has a lot of good features in that it puts a solution on the table, and it's like, now this is the solution, we can't now bike shed any further. But the downside is you can't migrate it. If we were going to propose a smart contract solution that could be migrated to change the kind of the lay of the land underneath the contract, like its functionality, its behavior, I almost think that would be another proposal, because it's obviously you can migrate it and you can change the way it behaves, but whether or not that is the correct thing to do, I don't know.
Yeah, you could also have it so that the community or the governance module itself is the admin. So if the community wanted to upgrade the contract, they could vote to upgrade the contract.
Does that actually work though? Can you send a migrate message as the governance module? Because I thought you have to be a regular signing key in order to call a WASM migrate message. I believe
that there is a new in the latest version of WASM-D, there is a new migrate contract message, which you could, or proposal type. So there's a special proposal type for this new migrate feature.
That actually does sound like a thing I've seen in the changelog. So
and,
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, no, they just went ahead and added full smart contract interaction capabilities to the Cosmos governance module, which is really exciting. Another thing that could happen too is like if there's a new contract, like the new contract could be instantiated, and then like the community could just vote to send funds to the new contract. Like, so like having
the ability... that's actually a really good point, is if you did want to instantiate, even if you wanted to take away the admin capabilities for like any number of reasons, like from liability to whatever, to actually, I mean, another good reason of taking the admin away is to force people into having to come up with a solution. But actually, like Meow's just saying, when you have the ability to have a prop that says drain all the funds from the contract and send it somewhere, you also could instantiate another contract and send the funds there, and the native balance would land. Although I suppose a weirder and funnier thing would be the smart contract, I guess, appears as an address. Wouldn't it be kind of funny if the smart contract received an airdrop? Or is it too soon?
I mean, it could happen. Yeah, why not? Someone's going to have that brilliant idea. Like,
I just saw Jabbey's face. He's just saying, dear God, no.
It's going to become a Mount Doom address where people start sending like NFTs and stuff to it as like, I don't need this one anymore. Send it to the whale. Send it to the whale contracts.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could. I mean, it would be overthinking it to actually write some reply hooks for NFTs to see what it would do with those. But yeah, so yeah, that's the long and short of, I think, where we're up to with the contract stuff. And also, hello, Meow. We kind of snuck you in the back door without introducing you properly.
Yeah,
welcome to Game of Nodes.
I was late, but I'm excited to be here. This is my favorite YouTube series.
After like one episode, wait, two episodes.
2 episodes, yeah. That last one was great. It was a great episode.
Awesome.
And I'm honored to be here with the likes of Jabbey. Like, I raise my glass to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think Jabbey's been keeping us sane for the last
and Schulte and you too, obviously, Alex. So, you know.
I mean, the phrase username just gives me closure.
Great.
That was an excellent joke. Cool. Okay. So is there anything else we want to say about the Unity prop at this stage? And also, if anybody, we actually noticed there are people watching. So if you have questions about the Unity prop, I'm gonna whip through the comments. I've realized I haven't been paying attention to them. Ask questions about what we're saying as we go. Sorry about that.
Can I give my quick why I think the Unity prop is cool spiel?
Please do. Yes.
I'm really sorry if I repeat anything that any of you said before. Oh, Jesus Christ. Wenra. But yeah, like it achieves everything the community really wants. It takes away the whale's voting power. It takes away their staking rewards. It is action. So, you know, it's like, at the same time, it also makes a lot of validators feel a little bit more comfortable to not burn the funds instantaneously. Obviously, they can be burned once in the smart contract, but it's not the validators doing it. It's the community voting to burn the funds, which is a small distinction, but I think that, you know, that's a good one. Making our validators comfortable is great. And then I think the final reason I really like it is because the community is in complete control. It is also a really great way to like come up with like a little bit more deliberation before we take this like big step. You know, it allows the chance for us to come to a compromise or some other solution we haven't yet thought. Now, do I think that's super likely? No, I think probably the funds are going to get voted to be burned because I don't think the whale is going to put forward a good solution, but you never know. You have to allow space for that. And I think it's going to make us like look a little bit better having, you know, some sort of process for this and not just instantly burning the funds. Though that might happen anyway. All right, yeah, that's my spiel.
I think it's also, can we just recognize how good Jabbey's little flowchart here is, like laying out all of these points as we've been saying them. This is kind of pretty awesome. But yeah, no, one of the big things I think from everybody that's following the Commonwealth threads as they were happening, like to pick up on something you said just there, which is that moving the funds to the smart contract and delegating them, it's a very subtle distinction to like pop them in the smart contract. But, you know, the CCN still are the only entity that can trigger that withdrawal, the ripcord we were talking about earlier. So that they're kind of still in control at the table, able to compromise if they would like to. But very crucially, their voting power is gone. And their ability to unbond and cut and run is also kind of gone. Although still on a 28-day timer, but the community has the other half, is basically holding the other half of the thread, right? So the two things that we, I think, saw the most during that debate, which is we're worried about their voting power, which I think validators and devs are most worried about. And then we're worried about their kind of economic power as well as their voting power was the other thing I saw a lot in the community. So the great thing about the Unity prop is it does kind of deal with both of those things quite neatly, right?
Yeah. And I think people don't really understand the whole ripcord dynamic. I saw a lot of, I think, I'll call them bad takes because I don't think they really read through or understood some of the nuance of the proposal. The community is in complete control, even if the whale pulls the ripcord. There's 28 days for the community to vote to burn their funds or send them somewhere else. So, and who knows, maybe the community will decide to fund Ukraine or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, so that ripcord also is to like make people feel like a little bit more safe about running this code. It was a compromise. So
yeah,
and it doesn't matter if the whale agrees to it or not. That's another thing. Is like, yeah, the whale has not come forward with any actual viable like solutions. They're just wasting time at this point. So this forces them to actually come to the table with a good solution.
So there's some good questions in the chat. One of which is probably too big to throw up on the screen because it's a really big comment. But can the whale's staking rewards be frozen as soon as the prop goes up? So this is we're obviously now at the point where, and I think this is an interesting question, is that the CCN account has accumulated quite a lot of rewards while this situation has been ongoing. So it's worth bearing in mind that with so back to we were going to talk a little bit about what Lupercalia phase 1 is. So Lupercalia phase 1, we already mentioned, is essentially it's the teamwork that makes the dream work as far as the pseudo functionality and the governance module calling contracts is concerned, right? As well as some security fixes and stuff that we'd really like to get in. And then Lupercalia phase 2, which is what Jabbey has been hard at work testing, is the actual, well, one of two. Lupercalia phase 2 is one of two things, right? Option 1 is it's a burn, as we described at the top of the show. Option 2, it's moving the funds to a smart contract, right? So either way, the work that Jabbey's been doing testing this code is like completely essential to what we need to do. But until Lupercalia phase 2, that prop, whatever it is, whatever number it ends up being, until that code is run, the whale's funds aren't undelegated, right? And in addition, they are free to claim their rewards and cut and run with those. But I don't know, what's our sense here on how major an issue that would be, you know, the rewards that they've got to date?
I personally don't think this is too much of an issue. Like, they've sold very large amounts of Juno before, and yes, it does like tank the price like temporarily, not like, you know, it's a large amount of funds, but you know, it's a flash crash and people know that Juno is valuable, and we've weathered it many times in the past. I mean, they've already sold like $60 million of Juno, and so this will just be the last time. I mean, there's not really too much we can do about those rewards at the moment. Maybe, you know, Jabbey has some more to add to this, but yeah, there's like, it's not going to be possible to like really, I mean, there's a chance that they won't move them. But I think that that's unlikely. If there's a phase 2 proposal that comes up, they're probably going to want to be like, okay, now we're out of here. But you know, maybe they won't, because the game theory here, especially if we do a smart contract approach, is, well, maybe they won't move their funds because they don't want to piss off the community, because then the community will vote to burn them, you know. So who knows exactly how they're going to behave like with the prop on the table, but yeah, we can't really grab those, and because we have to wait for the prop to pass, and so then there's like a 5-day window where they can just send it to osmosis or whatever. But honestly,
what is the numbers? Can anybody? I feel like this is a number that Jabbey might know off the top of his head. I feel like it's 50K. It's like
so they have a little over 100,000 stake rewards, earning about 6,000 a day. They have around, I think they put 2 million into liquidity. It's now worth around 4 million. And then of course there's several other potentially CCN related accounts that are, some are definitely that are also still flush with Juno. And you know, this is the one very easy to identify and remediate case that keeps us sane, if you will, and not having to sort of go through every module account and, you know, or not module account, but every user account, and try to address the balance that's there. So I think that keeping it limited to what is locked in staking, in terms of what we can safely guarantee that we will be able to claw back, gives us a lot of leverage. And then we get into the game theory, like Meow was describing, with regards to what happens during the moment of governance. If they sell it, so be it. They sell it. If they decide to retain it, I think that will do well for, you know, keeping the community engaged. But I think that as they continue to explain things, we've effectively seen their support not gaining traction.
Which does beg the question. I think we've talked about this privately as well. Like, do you think they've been negotiating in bad faith, or is it just a not comprehending the severity of the situation they're currently faced with?
So there's a couple of perspectives you can go with this. You can go at the perspective of you started with nothing in Juno, you were given something, and you gained already from it. So from that perspective, like, you've already won. And then the other perspective is, I had something amazing. I had, you know, $120 million, and now they're trying to sort of pull that back from me. So if you take it from that, you know, I've already maximized my profits, I want to retain it, I think that it becomes easy to see how they want to project they have the upper hand throughout this. I don't know. I feel like I'm using words like them and they and not adding a lot of compassion to this. it is curious, from the way I see the layout of the chessboard and the pieces that are in play, it feels like we're in endgame, and
A
they are
game of
playing
nodes,
like.
if you will, by the way, this chessboard that you described, this game of nodes, if you will.
But it really plays more like Go, where it's about surrounding pieces and trying to capture territory, and at any moment that it can sort of flip between you're ahead in this game, or you're suddenly underwater. So anyway, yeah, I think I sort of rambled on there.
Well, I think that there's a point to be made here about, given that they are supposed to be a fund holding their investors' funds, I think there's an argument to be made that they probably don't have a lot of things on the table that we might have expected them to bargain with, right? If I had just been airdropped $125 million and I knew that the community was coming for a burn, I would probably try to negotiate. I want to keep like 5%. That's it. Everything else, and I will send it for you. I got my thing. But if they're holding someone else's funds, then they would technically need the permission of the fund individuals to say, hey, I'm trying to get your funds, but that means giving away most of it, right? And for them to have to go back and talk to each person would be quite a lift, something they're probably doing. But it means that they aren't able to just come up with immediate answers. They have to kind of like evolve through it because they have constituents that they need to effectively communicate with, and their interests, and there's probably even Japanese laws that they need to adhere to. That means that they don't have the control to just say, burn half and give us the rest. Things like that.
Right.
I'm not sure how much they care about complying with Japanese laws or their clients. It's really hard to say. Yeah, I personally think that, it doesn't really matter whether or not they're doing this like with nefarious intent or not, or like why they're doing it. I don't think they've like fully understood the situation here, and that like there is not really a core team they can like argue with, or like deal with. Like, this is a decentralized community, and ultimately they have to like appeal to the community with like something the community feels is a viable solution, and that could be like, the reason I like the Unity prop is because it buys like more time to like
Sure.
come to that potential viable solution while still like addressing the community's concerns. So hopefully we'll see something good from them, but perhaps not. I do think that they've like probably could have played their hand a lot better. They focused a lot on how poorly like Prop 16 was written and like a lot of that drama, but I think sort of the discussion has like moved on from there, and they've like talked a lot about like they haven't really put forward very many like concrete proposals, and they still have time. There still is time to put forward like an on-chain proposal that gets voted on. So we'll see what they do. And we've got in the meantime phase 1 of the upgrade with some really cool stuff coming in. And then, I think we'll probably wind up moving forward with hopefully like Unity. And yeah, that should get them to the table to show that they need to make some sort of concessions. Like, people are not going to just like trust them right away. So they need to like figure out a proposal that'll work to like win trust from the community. I'm actually surprised that they haven't like done like a, like let us keep 25% kind of thing, or like let us, there's still like a lot more areas to explore. But I think the time is ticking, and yeah, we'll see what they come up with.
I think what I was worried about, and I think I tweeted about this the other day, is that their optimal negotiating strategy might just be to stall, because if you have 2% of token supply, it's still going to be worth something regardless of how much you essentially play out the hand of everybody else. Because certainly the kind of a lot of people who have skin in the game can't afford to just watch essentially a drama continue for a long period of time. But then it's also very hard to see how, other than a kind of very short-term negotiating strategy, like if you're trying to wait somebody out in a contract negotiation, maybe, but if those people also kind of hold the key to your funds, just a lot of things about their negotiating strategy really do not add up, if it is indeed a thought out strategy at all. And actually, back to Schultz's point, yeah, obviously I have no insider evidence on this, but like my gut feeling tells me that the majority of people that are involved in whatever investments they're running do not know about these funds, but some do. And I do wonder if their slowness to move is that they have a few big people behind the scenes who have an opinion, but the majority of people, they don't have any idea. And that's why they could table the 50-50, because it's like, well, the 50% that goes to the Juno community comes out the small fish. And then the people that we would have to go around and individually ask them, their funds are protected. It feels like that kind of a fudge. But yeah, I mean, I'm also curious as to why, when that received hostility, the other question is then, yeah, why don't you then go down to 25, 75? Unless, I guess the question is, like, the community, I think, quite strongly reacted to it as a bribe as well, which, a bribe's a bribe, right? It doesn't matter whether it's 75% or 50%, like it's going to get rejected either way, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what we've seen generally is that we started with clawing back 90%. We then progressed to clawing back 50K. We have talked about burning all. We've talked about Unity, where over the course of time, there's a path in which they receive all the Juno. There are options for remediating further in the Unity proposal. So why haven't anyone submitted like an upgrade proposal? Well, because we do want to still evaluate and consider the different options that are available. Yes, Prop 16 passed, but we all agree on some level it was deeply flawed. And so how can we prevent there's these three opposing forces that are working in concert with one another in directly oppositional paths, and so we're in this deadlock. And so how do we navigate this in such a way that we all win? And it seems like Unity is the best option forward.
It might be worth talking about like why a software upgrade proposal is necessary to get this to happen. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the reason why a software upgrade is necessary is because during an upgrade, state changes can happen. And this has actually happened previously with the Sommelier chain. But aside from that one instance, you can't alter the state of the chain. Is that correct?
No, you can, and that's kind of why it has to be done through an upgrade. When you make a big breaking change to like a native Cosmos SDK module, well, state changes, and so they actually built this feature to make upgrades like more seamless and easy, so they can happen via on-chain votes. But it's kind of had this unintended side effect is like, oh wow, we can control state there, like we can kind of do whatever we want. And so yeah, I think that a feature that was built to make upgrades easier actually has this like other some other consequence to it. But yeah, the whole point was
it's a bit of an Adam Curtis documentary type situation, isn't it? Where it's like, the devs built this feature and they thought they were just making their lives easier, but this was a fantasy.
Well, the other option is that we forego a software upgrade proposal. We get all the validators, all 120 is it 125 on Juno? We get all the validators to agree that we're going to set a halt height at 2.5, block 2.5 million. And so once that comes around, everyone stops, everyone installs the new Juno, and then starts again. But coordinating that and ensuring that everyone upgrades is very difficult, and it can end up creating a situation where the chain halts because people don't see that the consensus is progressing during that upgrade, and so it gets very dangerous. So the software upgrade proposal is basically setting the halt height for everyone at the same time when the governance proposal succeeds, and preventing the chain from proceeding without, at least a modicum of checking that says, are you running the latest? And so it's not a perfect system, but it definitely avoids the halt height debacle where, some chains even recently have halted.
It's so much nicer. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember like the early like Cosmos Hub upgrades where like the number changed each time, like Cosmos Hub 2 to Cosmos Hub 3, Cosmos Hub 3 to Cosmos Hub 4. It was like those were, the auto upgrade stuff is an amazing tool, but with it comes this like sort of like ability to like rewrite state, and that was a needed feature because oftentimes when you need an upgrade, it's because some breaking change happened in the state somewhere, like and you needed to migrate that.
Yep.
And so I think this comes down to like a lot of the discussions we've been having around this of like the need to improve our governance standards, thinking about things like on-chain constitutions, just evolving our governance processes. But those are longer conversations, and I know the Whale has like posted a lot about like, oh, we need a constitution, there needs to be like some sort of like due process, but the constitution is sort of the consensus of the community, and the community would have to. I do think it comes down to like sort of stalling, which is good for them, at least in this phase of the game theory when they're earning staking rewards. They have all the incentive to want to stall and like try to make themselves look good by like advocating for, oh, we need to like create a constitution first before we like take this drastic measure. But it's there's nothing to stop the community from like, especially now that the code is out there, like someone could like literally just like anyone could just like post this, it's like, and it's the community has like been very loud and vocal that something needs to happen here. In many ways, like I'm kind of surprised that the Whale did not go for the Unity proposal out of like just trying to like show like good faith. And I at the end of the day, they don't really have too much of a choice. Like consensus is ultimately social consensus, and like the large majority of the community believes that action needs to be taken. So
I tend to agree, especially with how much effort they put into getting a game going. You would think they'd spend more time trying to improve the goodwill of the community, because if they're not trying to make any inroads with the Juno community, that then expands to Osmosis community and Cosmos community, and so they're not going to feel as much incentive to go join game. And I feel like that's a conversation that they haven't really addressed too much, but I found very interesting. I don't know if they're trying to distance themselves as much as possible, but they are, in effect, game. So goodwill against the Whale or bad will for the Whale is more or less bad will for game. And it seems like they are remiss for not addressing that.
Yeah, I think it's a missed opportunity on their part. I think in hindsight, or if I could just argue from the Whale's perspective for a little bit, like the best thing to do is to like engage the community and figure out some explore different plans of actions for solving the core problems. Like they have to give up their funds, and so like and
yeah,
there's more at
honestly,
stake.
The only thing they've been able to do since the Unity prop was put on the table, that has been the only game in town. And that's really obvious, right? It's fundamentally pretty obvious. Like it's Unity prop or burn, right? And burn is incredibly difficult to pass for a variety of reasons. So stalling the Unity prop is the only way you've got wriggle room out of burn if you don't like the Unity prop. But it doesn't change the fact that the Unity prop is your only way out, which is the bit I don't get. Like I get that the stalling tactic is logical for some definition of logical, but there's no end game to it. Like it's a short-sighted tactic. And that's been the weirdest thing for me is watching this play out. It's just going like, what? Yeah, like putting aside all the stuff about game, which is like, the Cosmos community is largely the same group of people. If you poison the well, you poison the well, right? So that's a big negative for their entire negotiating strategy. But also, if you intend to walk away with any of your Juno, then you should have taken the Unity prop. Yeah, it's pretty weird. So anyway, we were gonna kind of keep this to about. We were originally trying to keep this to about half an hour, but we've ended up. We seem to like just sort of our default length was about 50 minutes, and then we're like, oh, it's 50 minutes on the clock. We should probably start thinking about wrapping up. So we basically wanted to just talk about Lupercalia Phase 1, what the Unity prop is, and how it actually works. And the work Joe's been doing with the testing and stuff for Lupercalia Phase 2. And why that's important so far, important for all of the different strategies. Hopefully that has now been done partly and largely due to Joe's excellent flowchart making. Is there anything else we'd like to say on this before we wrap up? If there's any other, I'll flick back through the comments and just see if there's anything super pressing.
I think the most important thing is that we have all at one point or another changed our mind about a conclusion that we've come up to or have made, and sometimes very publicly, and have learned that you're wrong, and then admitted that you're wrong and made a change to, choose a new path or a path that you had previously closed. I know I've done that myself. You've all seen it in me shutting down my validator and then being like, wait, no, this is going to cause more harm. Let me turn it back on. So while we say that they've rejected it, that they rejected Unity, I think there's still the opportunity to accept it. I think there's the opportunity to realize that there is time that it affords, and that we can continue to discuss and proceed. I know I've had some terse, succinct comments about, we're done talking about it, but I totally understand that this is a non-trivial problem to solve.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, they're probably just going to be forced into Unity. It doesn't really matter if they accept it or not. But I think it would be better for them and also better for us if they did, because then it's like, that's actually, I think, kind of adds a lot more legitimacy to what we're doing, and I think a lot of people were confused of like, let's just kill the whale. Like, why are they like involved at all? Like, well, first of all, the community has full power, which is why the whale is like probably hesitant to, place themselves in a situation where the whale or where the community has full power. But they're involved to like to make us look better, and so like make it so that people see that Juno is like evolving its own governance procedures like really quickly and doing things in a very thoughtful, considerate way. Lol.
3 heads are better than 1.
3 heads are better than 1. But,
it's the 4D chess move we've all been missing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I think we're all on the kind of same page. Like, we just would really like it would be really, really nice if we could have Unity not enforced. But the reality is that at this stage, the most likely thing to pass is probably Unity, and it's most likely that it will be enforced. And that means
I think it's most likely that the community will vote to burn the whale after it's in the smart contract. You know, that's that. But then that happens.
Speaking of something burning, I think I smell something in the oven.
But so I guess just to fully recap, then the probable fate for anybody who's joined super late, what's probably going to happen now? Lupercalia phase 1, we get smart contracts with sudo. Unity prop, which involves a smart contract, and Unity prop launches the upgrade, which is Lupercalia part 2, which moves the funds. And the time scale for this is probably next week, testing period, then next week. So 10 to 14 days. That sound about right, Meow?
Yep, I think it's about 10 to 14 days. And then this whole CCN saga will be, I think, largely resolved. You know, there might be, you know, some follow-on proposals, but I think they'll be a lot less dramatic because the main problem of the whale having too much voting power and selling staking rewards and getting staking rewards, that will be resolved. And so hopefully the coming any future debates, oh, that looks delicious.
These are supposed to be waffle fries. They are waffle burnt to a crisp.
I guess you're just practicing, you know.
Yeah.
Just practicing burning.
I took that joke from Callum Anderson in the comments. So you know, yeah, I'm not.
I thought that was an original.
No.
And you've also just doxed Callum on the on the Spotify version of this as well.
Oh well,
sensational. Okay, well, I was going to say, should we sign this off with something positive from you, Jake? Because we'll all be doing this again on our regular slot when it's not extra credit. But what we always round off the show with something that we're excited about for the next week. So would you like to round up the show by telling us something you're excited about from the next week? Anywhere in the cosmos. So you can also plug Stargaze if you would like to plug Stargaze.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for everything happening in the cosmos. There we go. Now, I mean, okay, seriously, I'm excited for the upgrade. Like, this is going to be really, really cool. It's a big moment for Juno, like some nice performance improvements, some security stuff, and it's like giving governance, like the community, like real governance control over smart contracts is going to, I think, lead to some next gen stuff. Like, we're going to do some things as a community that no community will have like ever done before. And that, I mean, how can you not be excited about that? Like,
yeah, it's pretty rad. Okay. On that note, I think we're out. Thanks for joining us, Jake, Meow. Yeah. And thanks for all your hard work, Jabbey. I think we all need to say thank you for all your hard work behind the scenes with the flow charts in front of the scenes on Twitter, and for all the shade you've been throwing in the last 24 hours. It's been very, very funny to watch. And, you know, here's hoping we get all of our upgrades out and rolling in the next sort of 10 to 14 days and put this behind us, eh?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Right. Party on, everybody.